Now this next sentence misuses a semicolon. And in poetry, I'm willing to let it slide a little more than I would be in fiction. Just this semicolon misuse. See, what he did was, I stay on guard, I dictate the pace, I set the tones because I walk alone. There are, is that 3 or 4 semicolons? 1, 2. That's 3. 3 semicolons in that sentence. And the problem with using semicolons in that sentence, the major problem, is that because I walk alone is just a clause. And when you're writing in English, the normal English grammar rules, you don't connect clauses together with semicolons. You connect full, complete sentences with semicolons. So that automatically is a mistake. But like I said, poetry, I'm willing to back off. But to look at each section individually, I stay on guard. Okay, I can see that, because a person out in the wilderness by themselves would have to be at least a little bit focused on where they are, a little bit aware of their surroundings. Again, that staying on guard ties back in. I'm almost okay with that. But dictate the pace? You're the only person there. Who else would dictate the pace? If you're the only person out in the middle of nowhere, the lone wolf by yourself, there's no pacing that needs to be dictated, because you walk, and you're walking by yourself. Same thing with setting the tone. Okay, of course you do. And setting the tone, basically, doesn't that mean the same thing as setting the pace? Basically, I control my surroundings. Whatever. And then it ends with because I walk alone, repeating the I walk alone the same way that Green Day did. And fine, okay, I understand that you would do these things, but you would do these things naturally because you're alone. See, we've already picked up on the metaphor of being alone. And this poem just keeps repeating itself, and it's not really particularly necessary. Now, this next line I gotta bring up for a couple of different reasons. The world is my house, and its strangers my family. Now, the world is my house, and its strangers my family. I'd like you to direct your opinion, direct your gaze, whatever, to the word its. That's not a word! No, that's not a word! He put ITS apostrophe. No! Okay, it's not a word. That's not an English word. That is a big typo. And the only reason that I'm getting on to you about this typo is because you published this on a blog. It's a published thing. You don't edit your stuff? This is a short poem. You really didn't notice that mistake? It's a pretty big mistake. And let me explain why. Let me explain why. In this sentence, it's strangers my family, I'm pretty sure that the intent was the strangers of the world are my family. If it's the possessive its, that's just ITS, no apostrophe at all. No apostrophe at all. Because that's how we do in English. That's how English grammar does its as possessive. The only time you put an apostrophe in the word its is when it's a contraction of the word it and is. That makes no sense in this sentence. So the apostrophe is clearly an accidental typo. And the fact that you published this without editing that out, it's a short poem. It's a really short poem. And a typo like this, a typo that would get points taken off from an actual grammar teacher, the fact that it's published here, literally published, shows that the person publishing doesn't care to edit their own work. You have to edit your own work. Editors will do it for you sometimes, but they don't want to have to slog through something that's riddled with errors because they have to decipher it as they go. I don't want to have to decipher something as I go. I'd like it to be rather understandable. The what? Oh yes, To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay. Beg pardon. To Kill a Mockingbird. It's a famous book, but it was almost not published. It was almost not published because Harper Lee was a terrible typist. Her grammar was horrible, her writing was all over the place, and the editor had to fight through it. It got published, but that was rare. That was really lucky for her. And this is, like I said, a really short poem, and I am disappointed. All right, it's not professional quality work. Okay, now to talk about the whole purpose of that sentence in regards to the poem. The world is my house, and its strangers my family. That implies that you are comfortable in the world itself, and that everyone on the planet is close to you, right? Metaphorically speaking, that sentence implies that we are all in the same wolf pack. And to make it absolutely obvious, the first half of the poem, I am alone. I am completely alone and self-sufficient. This line here, we are all together in this. Not being in a wolf pack does not equal the same thing as being in a wolf pack. So these two sentences absolutely, obviously negate each other. And you cannot say these two things in the same poem because it's not the same thing. You can't be alone and be in the wolf pack. It's not possible. Now, I fit in and stand out. No, you really don't. Lone wolves don't fit in. Lone wolves stand out, absolutely. I am with you on that. But they don't fit in. You know, to say that you fit in and stand out would be that you're like a wolf in the wolf pack who is vegetarian or something. You see, you're still part of the pack if you fit in at all. And that, again, totally negates the whole being alone. Now, you end this poem with I rock and roll. I'm going to take that as just another way of saying I'm awesome, which is definitely the feeling of this poem. The speaker of the poem is so grandiose and absolutely narcissistic, just absolutely. Now, you shouldn't end a poem with I rock and roll. It's part of the American lexicon. It's something that's just not unique at all, and it should not be the end of the poem. It's not a punch. It's absolutely not a punchy way to end this poem. Really, honestly, I think I fit in and stand out, if it could be made to fit the poem, would be a better ending than I rock and roll, because like I said, I rock and roll just basically means I'm awesome. It doesn't really connect. And furthermore, the point of I'm awesome. I would now like to direct your attention to the author's extreme use of the word I would like to point out that every sentence in this poem uses some form of I or me. Almost all of them begin with I. The one that does not begin with I has my and me. You can tell through this use of these words that the whole poem is focused on the speaker as this brave, solid individual. And he's a little bit overbearing, and he's not a person that we really want to connect to because he is so narcissistic and, ending, I'm awesome. It just, it doesn't quite work. You're alienating the reader. Absolutely alienating the reader with this sense of narcissism. And that's just in the little words. The poem itself is utterly pretentious. And okay, it's my house is in the nominative. Nominative, okay. I get it. Like I was saying, I is everywhere, my is everywhere. It's pointing back to me as the subject of every sentence. And like I said, the speaker is a little bit unbearable because he is so focused on himself. And that would be fine if that was the character that this author was going for. But if you look back at the sentences that don't fit, it's clearly not. It's not a cohesive work. It's not a cohesive poem. This is honestly high school level work. And as I said, the guy's in his 30s. Just this poem is really, really terrible. And now I have shared it with you. You are all just a little bit dumber for having read this awful, awful poem. Goodbye, and I hope you can find something better to read than this dreck.